Camera. No, yep.
Okay, great. Works. Okay, so let's not waste too much time. We can start. And so I'm here with Andres Sacco, who I met at the XtremeJ online conference. We both were speakers at the conference, and it's interesting. Our topics are a little bit related because my talk was titled 12 overlooked API details that can get you in trouble. And last but not least, one of those details that I presented was about testing APIs. And the point is that people who develop APIs should not rely on unit tests because they may miss some parts that are important for APIs, like serialization, configuration, various protocol specific details. And that's why I actually advise people to run their applications side by side with the tests and send real requests to the applications or something that we usually call black box testing. So we
Mm.
don't have access to internals of the application. We just communicate via the real API. And that's actually the first thing that I want to talk about because your talk was about the karate test automation framework. And I understood that this framework supports the black box testing. So is that correct?
Yeah, the spirit. Hello, everyone. The spirit of the library is like create a test that you can use without interfere with the real logic. Of course, you can modify the logic, like create mocks. It's possible. It depends how you run karate. But the spirit is like, okay, I ran my test. It's like a black box. Send a request and wait to the response and check if everything is okay or not.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so if we compare it, for example, to the integration tests provided by Spring Boot, when you use the Spring Boot test annotation, you you could do black box tests, but you also have the option to do white box testing,
Mm,
which means you have access to the implementation objects, which can be in some cases useful, but that brings some dependency.
mm,
And that means you can't switch to some other framework so easily because you already depend on it. So really, if you use something like karate that is separated from the implementation, then you are agnostic. And yes, even if you use, for example, different implementation technology for different services, your test can be still using the same thing. Okay, and yeah, I have also experience with something similar, but not exactly karate. I have experience with Cucumber and Rest Assured, where I think we also discussed it at the end of your presentation that for Cucumber, comparing to karate, you would need to write more so-called glue code so that the requests and responses are processed. Is that right?
yeah. At the behind the scenes, Cucumber and Karate are more or less like friends and brothers or something like that because use Gherkin. And the main difference, and perhaps, is that Karate offer to you the possibility to interact with other plugins, other libraries. not just create my test, because, okay, I create my integration test. As you mentioned, you are agnostic to the technology. So in my case, I created one application using Ktor, a library from Kotlin. And after some months, we decide to migrate to Spring Boot. And when we created the test with Karate, we know that this situation could be possible, that we change from framework and we replace all the logic and our test continue working. So we know that everything is okay. But regarding with Karate versus Cucumber, one of the biggest problems that we have is create the performance test or the our how we can load or stress our application. And the main problem was, okay, I can define my scenarios on Gmeter, which is great. But the person or the people that are responsible to create these scenarios, I need to explain everything, the request, the response, how you need to create a flow to analyze or create a test. And we spend a lot of time. And when we add some validation or we change the request and the response, we need to say, okay, we modify a lot of things on the request and the response. Please change your performance test.
Yeah.
With Karate, is more or less like, okay, I define as a developer or a QA, I define the scenario, the structure of the request, the response, the endpoint, and you are tester or a person who are responsible from the create the scenario. Is like, okay, you only need to say how many users or how many requests you want to send or simulate to this particular scenario, and you don't need to know nothing about the format of the request, the format of the response, how is concatenate the different requests and the response. I think offer to the developer or simplify the process, offer another tool or another way to do it.
Yeah. That's what I also noticed, that basically karate is like a tool where you can do multiple things under one roof. So yeah, I also used JMeter or Gatling for performance tests, but as just another tool for a different purpose. And with karate, you could basically maintain a use case in one place, and you can use it either for the functional test or for the performance tests. That's good. Although maybe your argument about like a QA person or somebody who is specialized on testing, it can also go both ways, because I think the current trend is to have multifunctional teams, agile teams, where we try to make developers also test their code as much as possible, so that the code is already well tested and it doesn't have to be done by some separate role or some separate department. But still, probably there are some advantages in having also a tool that can do different things. Like also I think mocking, you can do mocking with karate or with some plugins maybe.
We My stack of technologies related with karate, I use karate for create my test and to simulate the external communication like another microservices. I use WireMock. You can use, if you want, micro but I think it's a lot of things for just a small task. I prefer WireMock, which is so simple to use.
Is it somehow pluggable to karate, or is it
No,
you
no,
use it separately?
it's like a puzzle. You need to combine different things.
Uh-huh. Okay.
In
Okay.
the case of if you need to run like a database or something like this, I use test container.
Mhm.
And so I create like a test container or a Docker file, because it's a Docker file behind the scenes, with my database, with WireMock, and with all the mocks, and I run all my karate tests. So for me, it's a black box because I only test all the things that happen inside of my application. And the database is the real database, is the same model, same version, the same vendor, everything is okay. And in the case that external communication, I use WireMark, and with WireMark, I can simulate like, I don't know, the latency or a bad request or an internal error server, whatever that I want to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
In this case, Karate not offer something to you like integrate, uh, because Karate is like is in the front, in the front of the API. It simulate the user interaction, the user or another API, and you need you need to modify the things that happen in the back.
Yeah.
Or
Okay. Yeah. 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 I used a similar approach also, but not with karate. I used rest assured and WireMock. Yes. So yeah, that's really a strong tool, and you can do interesting tests with that.
Mm.
Uh, and Um, so basically, with karate, I think many like usual things that the like if you want to test REST API, so you usually just send some GET POST requests and you check some status codes and compare the responses to the expected ones. So those are the common things. And for that, you already have something. So you don't need to write Java code for that. So you don't need to use REST assured or some other library for sending HTTP requests and so on. So that's the advantage because of course the less code you have, the less you have to maintain. So that's good, but of course, it maybe also is some kind of a new language. So it's not exactly Java; it's some DSL, one would say, but probably not a big one. So it should be quite easy to learn.
Yeah, and you can use for not just for simple scenario. You can use, well, I use to complex scenario, which implies events, SQS with from Amazon or Kafka events. So I simulate these kind of things, like send a message to a topic, my API do something, and with Karate I and REST heard, which is a Docker contain that offer to you access to a MongoDB in a REST API. So I can check what happened. I send an event and I say in Karate, okay, do this process, do this part of the checks, and I don't know, 3 times with a distance of 3 seconds. Repeat this
Mhm.
process because I know that process the event and save the information into the database more or less take this, and you can simulate this. And also in the case that you use Amazon Web Services, you can integrate with local stack and you can check if your application after do something with an event or when you create a new entity, push a new message in a particular queue and a particular topic.
So,
So
so also messaging and asynchronous
yeah,
communication is
yeah,
important.
yeah, you can do it.
So like also Kafka or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. I think it's worth trying. And maybe like a last question from me. I noticed in your talk that for the performance test demonstration, you used Scala. And I know you are a polyglot. You use different languages, but if you're already on JVM, do you actually like to use some other languages, other JVM languages than Java, like Scala or Kotlin? And because I am personally a big fan of Kotlin, and when I actually try to show Java programmers what they can get if they start using Kotlin, and one of those opportunities would be to use it for writing tests because it's much shorter, much more
Mm.
expressive, and you don't it's not like you have to go all in. You don't have to go directly into your production code. You're writing just the tests, and they will be easier to maintain. What's your take on this?
Um, Let me explain something about the use of karate with Gatling. You can write the test with Java. The main problem with this is that you need to write a lot of code to do the same that you do on Scala. And while, well, Gatling behind the scene, it's created, it's developed using Scala. So the syntax of Scala, it's more simple. And to create a performance test, I think that you don't need to know a lot of things to Scala. It's like the structure, what you want to do. Okay, this is more or less the structure of a performance test. It's implied to learn a lot of things of Scala. No, the structure is the same, so I can copy and paste. And if you know that behind the scenes use JVM, you know that okay, the word extends, it's more or less the same that from Java or for Kotlin. So I think uh, if you prefer, okay, write in Java, you write more code, is your choice. But I always try to use the language that offered to me a simple way to do the things. Understand that if I only do one small task, it's not necessary for me learn everything about this language.
Mm.
Um, I think that the developers that see also the first time Kotlin to create test was like, it's totally different. And perhaps it's a supposition. No, no, I don't have all the information, but it's because don't see the latest version of Java. For example, when in my case, when the developers say data class say, oh, we have a lot of new features from different from Java. Yeah, you know that exists the record in Java, which more or less do the same that the data class on Kotlin. Ah, no, which was the last version that you use on Java? 11.
Yeah,
My friend, we are in 23 now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That exactly. That's also an argument that basically my experience with Kotlin made me pay more attention to new Java, and to basically appreciate the new features that we get, because many people neglect them and they are missing out on good stuff. But also, as you said, that if you want to write a performance test, maybe the numbers and expressing the simulation is more important than semicolons and all the syntactic noise. I call it
Yeah.
noise that you would write with Java, and I think in this for this purpose, probably the Kotlin code is very similar to Scala code. Yeah, I know that Scala is stronger in the functional programming, but you would probably not use that much of that in for testing. So yeah, so that's again an opportunity to write a shorter code and a more expressive code that is easier to maintain. And basically, if you have a testing code that is easier to maintain, then that also encourages the developers to keep the tests up to date, so they are green. Because I think the worst tests are those that are like not maintained, and then nobody trusts them, and then they are useless. They are just asset. They are not just liability and not an asset, not a benefit to you. Okay. Thank you very much for answering my questions and mm, telling your views, also in the context of the karate framework. And I hope the viewers and listeners will find it useful.
Thank you for create this kind of a space, because I think one of the biggest problems with karate and many other libraries are that no one knows. Well, not a lot of, not all the developers or the QAs know. Most of the developers know Spring Boot test, JUnit 5, Mockito, and that's just, or
Yes.
Spock. In the best scenario, perhaps Spock and the other ones not exist, and solve a lot of problems in a quick way.
Yeah.
So thanks for the time.
Fully agree. Okay. Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.